Hey y'all, I'm Ash Vampire, and you're watching Shoring Up. Well, it's good to be back with Shoring Up. We took a bit of a week-long break so that We Are Not a Coca come out. I couldn't be happier with that reception, so thank you to everybody who spread it around and everybody who subscribed. I did not expect it to do as well as it did, and you can definitely look forward to more content in a similar vein coming soon. But we are here to talk about the final show in the discussion of the key trinity of major visual novel adaptations, and that is, of course, Clannad Afterstory. You know, by the time that we've gotten to Clannad Afterstory, we are really at this point seeing the culmination of all that Key has built up to going through all three of these adaptations, because in Afterstory, the traces of a visual novel in terms of the tropes that you typically associate with that kind of adaptation, they are just gone. They're just not there anymore. For one thing, the setting is not in high school anymore, and it's still localized to a degree. Like, it is still in the same town, of course, but so many visual novels are set in high school because that is where a main character is more than likely able to meet the widest variety of female characters to potentially romance. So for Afterstory to completely move out of high school, this kind of adds on to the fact that there's no potential romance options anymore, right? We have just completely left behind the fact that there is any idea of a more than linear storytelling going on here. Afterstory is about Nagisa and Tomoya, and the show wants you to be very, very aware that that is 100% the direction that this is going to be headed. And by moving it out of high school, on top of leaving behind a lot of visual novel tropes, you also get that this is just not something you see in very many anime anyway at all. Like, most anime that are set in high school, the show ends with graduation, be it from their first year or their final year. Like, high school shows, or at least shows that are set in high school predominantly, very rarely allow you to see these characters out being productive members of society. It just doesn't happen. So in addition to not having a lot of the visual novel trappings, it also just doesn't have a lot of the typical high school anime trappings anymore. You've also got the fact that the structure is completely different. In most visual novel adaptations, the structure is relatively predictable, because you're like, okay, we know we're gonna have a certain number of girls, like at least 4. You know, we know that we're gonna go through all of their arcs. We know that the main character is gonna have to choose one of them. It's very predictable in that way. But because Afterstory has completely left all that behind and has dedicated itself to telling the life story of Nagisa and Tomoya, that is just not a problem. You are able to just enjoy the story being told for what it is, without having this nagging in the back of your mind of, oh, well, here we go with the next visual novel trope that I have to sit through before I get what I really came for. You know, Afterstory, as much as I would like to be able to say that it really can stand on its own, it really can't. Like, I think that the story in and of itself could probably stand on its own, but obviously the characters themselves couldn't, because there's so much development that happens in Clannad. But Afterstory really capitalizes on the idea that you have seen the original Clannad first. It really doesn't try to redevelop the characters for the sake of new audiences, so to speak. It just goes full bore into saying, hey, we took the time to develop the relationship between Nagisa and Tomoya. We took the time to develop them as individual people, and now we are going to capitalize and cash in on all of that time that we have spent. Nagisa and Tomoya are perhaps the best anime couple that I have ever seen. Not particularly because their relationship is more interesting than any other relationship that I've seen. Like, there are plenty of examples that I will probably flash on screen here that are more interesting just because the dynamic is a little bit more complicated, or because there's a little bit of intrigue going on in terms of like how they met. The thing about Nagisa and Tomoya's relationship that I find so appealing is honestly just how normal it is. There's no forced hand of fate feeling that you get between these two. Their relationship is just pure and simple. These two really are meant for each other, and they have grown because of each other. They have allowed each other to become better people by playing off of one another. It is in my opinion, the perfect encapsulation of what a good relationship does look like. You have Tomoya, who was kind of a delinquent smartass who just did whatever he wanted, didn't care about anybody. He meets Nagisa, and he becomes a man who genuinely cares about other people, who takes personal responsibility upon himself because he feels that is the right thing to do. It's the thing to do to provide for his family. And then you have Nagisa, who was a shy, very demure girl who didn't really interact with anyone because she didn't want to cause problems for anybody. She felt ostracized, and after meeting Tomoya, she allows herself to grow into a more social person, to actually take the risk of interacting with people, of forming human connections. It is so beautiful to me to see this development, and not that After Story does anything with their relationship, so to speak. It really just cashes in on all the development to let it naturally flow in the way that it was always going to because of the development in Clannad, and to just see it so fully realized and to see it so smoothly executed. It feels so natural. I give it incredibly high praise, and like I said, they are hands down one of the best, if not the best, anime couple that I have ever seen. Now, when we started this video, I said that we weren't really going to be talking about very much of the things that are holdovers from Clannad, because we've already talked about those. There's no need to do that. And this is going to be a shorter shoring up because of that. And when I look at Clannad After Story, I have to think to myself, like, why is it that Clannad After Story sits so high in people's rankings on Mal? Because if Clannad After Story was strong in people's minds because of the good things that Clannad does, the strong points of Clannad were the reason that Clannad After Story was able to succeed so much, then Clannad itself would be right there with it. It would be, 13, 15, maybe more, but it would be right next to it. You would see it right there with its second season, but you don't. And I understand that a lot of people probably think that, the reason that After Story is so much more well beloved is because it is more emotionally resonant, right? It's very sad. It's very brutal in how it handles its characters, how the story direction that it has. It also, like we just talked about, it loses its visual novel trappings. It has one of the best romantic couples in anime, but I don't think that those things are why After Story is as beloved as it is, because those are, in my opinion, very small in comparison to the actual reason that After Story is so successful, and that is because Clannad After Story is a beautiful, expertly crafted character study of the main character, Tomoya. And you might be thinking, well, that's kind of that's kind of a pretty bland idea, right? That's a pretty bland reason for After Story to be successful. A weird conjecture, you might say. And I would agree with you, but the thing is that in the same vein of After Story losing its visual novel trappings, main characters in visual novel adaptations aren't developed. They just aren't, right? Because in their source material, they don't have a personality. They don't have a base upon which the show writers can develop a character. They are avatars. They are meant for the player to insert their own emotional resonance into to interact with all of the other characters. That's why they're so bland. That's why people think that they are so boring. I mean, I personally think Yuichi is a great character. I think that the writers did an excellent job in giving him a personality, but that's beside the point. That's just my opinion. And I perfectly understand why people don't think that. And with Tomoya in Clannad, the same could be said. But the thing is that with Afterstory, and again, this is why I think so many people love it, even if it's subconscious, because we watch Tomoya go through everything, every conceivable emotion that a human being might experience in their life. We get to see it in Tomoya. We see his joy, his confusion, his depression, his utter despair, his anxiety. I mean, like, I could just rattle off all of the things that Tomoya experiences. And he is such a dynamic character in Afterstory, in that it's difficult to predict how he might handle a situation because he is such a real character. You know, a lot of the discussion around shows, you know, in reviewing circles and analysis circles, have like a bunch of terms that they like to throw around relatively often, and relatability is one of those. And I tend to not like the term for reasons that I won't get into here. But when it comes to Tomoya, the depth of detail that he has in terms of experiences that we get to see, I 100% agree that he is one of the most relatable characters that I have ever seen in any piece of media, because he just goes through so much. And the best part about it is that because Afterstory really is a character study of this man, it doesn't shy away from showing us everything. We get to see, no matter how terrible it might be to watch somebody sink to the depths of depression and despair that Tomoya ends up going into, it doesn't shy away. It doesn't try to tell you, it doesn't assume that you aren't able to handle it. It wants you to see it. It is mind-bogglingly good to just have this level of care and attention put into the development of a single character. Because Clannad is Tomoya's story. Clannad Afterstory is Tomoya's story. And to see it executed on such a profound level, to affect you so much, I understand. I mean, I think this is why Clannad Afterstory sits at number 14 on Mal, because of just how perfect this character study is. You know, and were it just to be that, Clannad Afterstory, in my opinion, would be a 10 out of 10. Unfortunately, we've got the Deus Ex problems, which I go into in my scripted video, so, you know, we have to dock at a couple points there. But in addition to just being 100% on board with showing you everything that Tomoya has to experience and giving you the perfect lens through which to do it, Clannad Afterstory doesn't just, you know, think of this as, you know, here's our main plot line, Tomoya. You know, Tomoya's story is not just relegated to being like, okay, well, this is our main plot line, and, you know, over here we're gonna have, you know, this little bit, you know, with some of these other characters. No. Unlike a lot of visual novels, Clannad Afterstory is very tight. It's very, very tightly written, and it doesn't just, you know, like, wander off on some weird tangent. Like, I mean, Clannad is guilty of this. You know, as much as I value the arcs in Clannad for how well they develop all of the girls for context reasons, it is meandering. You know, it does wander around in terms of its narrative pacing and its narrative storytelling. But Afterstory is so tight and narrow, and it never deviates. It always sticks right on that straight and narrow path to tell you the one story that it is trying to communicate, and that is Tomoya's life. I recommend Clannad Afterstory, if only to see the exact level of character detail and depth of personality. Not just personality, but just depth of emotion. Again, Tomoya feels so real as a person. You could almost believe, if the magical elements weren't there, I could almost believe that this was like a based on true events story because of how real Tomoya is. It's amazing. And I know that I'm going on and just kind of saying the same thing, but I can't sing its praises enough for this fact. And if that hasn't convinced you to watch After Story and Clannad before it, I really think that Clannad before it is kind of essential. I can't do, any more for you. There is a part of me that was like, well, we kind of do need to talk about like the super emotional bits, the really sad stuff. But I mean, on their face, there's not much to talk about with those, right? They have a very specific goal to accomplish, and they do it. I mean, they do it very well. Don't get me wrong. I cried like a total bitch when Ushio and Tomoya hugged in the sunflower field, like everybody does when they see that scene. But that is what it's there to do. There's no intricacy that I saw on a single viewing, right? Remember, these videos are made with me having only watched the show, one time. If I go back and I see something more to it, I will definitely end up writing a scripted video on it. But I mean, just in a first viewing, it has a single purpose. It does it very well, but that's about it. It doesn't have anything that grabs at me as being more worthy than anything else to be talked about. It's just kind of, it's the window dressing, right? It's the context for this character study of Tomoya. Everything comes back to this. And what's amazing is that you kind of don't even realize it going in, because you're thinking of this as just the second season of Clannad, when, again, it is set up for After Story, but you don't really understand the depth to which it does that until you see exactly how much they deep dive Tomoya's character. So with that said, and this being a probably for some people gracefully short shoring up, I will give Clannad After Story a 9, and I will catch you on the flip side.